See, I look nonchalant as if I'm not looking at the camera. That's the first thing that
These women I'm watching.
President of the Burns Federation, members of Burns clubs, Masonic lodges, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, it is my proud privilege to welcome you here this evening on this, the 200th anniversary of the publishing of the first edition of the works of Robert Burns, commonly known as the Kilmarnock edition. I am proud because it has been said, and I see no reason to doubt the statement, that if it had not been for Kilmarnock, there would be no Burns Cottage, no Dumfries Mausoleum, and no Burns Federation. But for Kilmarnock, Robert Burns would have died an obscure and broken-hearted clerk on a West Indian sugar plantation. Without the Kilmarnock edition of 1786, Burns would have departed these shores. But the success of that publication rocketed the intending emigrant to national fame. The town of Kilmarnock and many of its citizens were Burns' principal contacts in social and intellectual affairs. He was a welcome guest and friend in their homes. Mrs. Gregory played on her piano for his entertainment. John Goldie invited him to take pot luck at his table. These are but two. After such a homely meal, his Kilmarnock friends gathered to hear Burns reading some of his poetry. And in the words of the Ayrshire historian, James Patterson, and I quote, straightway agreed to guarantee Burns against loss in the printing of his poetry. Kilmarnock has served Scotland well by ensuring that Robert Burns remained in his native land, where his challenge to society recognised he could revive such poems as Holy Willie's Prayer, The Jolly Beggars, and The Twa Hearts. In an almost prophetic manner, he could write, "Go fame, canter like a filly, through all the streets and nooks of Gilly." Words which even 200 years on are proudly quoted by the citizens of this old town. Ladies and gentlemen, on this historic occasion, I bid you welcome to Old.
Provost Ferguson, members of Kilmarnock and Loudon, Bunsians, Masonic Lodges, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Ayrshire Association of Burns Clubs, I bid you welcome, and I'm delighted that this evening we are paying tribute to a man who in many ways helped Robert Burns to become the international figure that he is. My duty tonight is of the Association of Burns Clubs, the Ayrshire Association. She's presently secretary to the Ayrshire Association, and she's the junior vice president of the Burns Federation. That's a lot of titles for an awful bonny lassie, but she can manage them all, I can assure you. Eunice has researched very thoroughly the history of this old church, and I would say that she will fill your ears with real history concerning the old High Kirk and the many famous people that have been associated with it, including not least John Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Eunice Logan.
Provost Ferguson, councillors, Reverend Sir, Brother John Weir, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honour for me to be present here on the 31st of July, the Old High Kirk, on the 200th anniversary of the printing of the Kilmarnock edition. This historic kirk, which was built in the design of St Martin in the Fields in London, is reckoned to be the most successful effort of Gibb, the Scottish architect. About 1731, the Low or Lake Kirk was found to be insufficient for the accommodation of the increasing population of Kilmarnock, which was about that time roughly 5,000. And to supply the deficiency, the High Church was erected, then called the Chapel of Ease. In modern days it would be called a church extension. Building started around the year of 1731, and the cost was £850, excluding the steeple and plastering the kirk and the kirkyard dyke. The then town council advanced £30 to assist with the building. The Earl of Kilmarnock and Mr John Orr of Gruger and Barrowfield subscribed 1,000 merks, which amounted to £666, 13 shillings and 4pence, and the balance was subscribed by members of the Church of Scotland in Kilmarnock. The first minister of the Old High was the Reverend James Oliphant, an old licht with a very powerful voice. Robert Burns quoted that of the Church of Kilmarnock, he hath made it yell. He was succeeded in the year 1774 by the Reverend John Russell. He was called the Hard Dominie. He had a great black beard, a coarse frame, and a voice like thunder, and the children feared him. From a reference in the Kilmarnock Standard, dated 1880, we find that the Reverend Russell lived in the second two-storey house on the east side of what is now Titchcote Street, and on his way up to this church on the Sabbath morning, if he saw any boys playing in the town green, they were liable to get a belt in the ear from him. From Burns' poem, The Holy Fair, but now the lording trumpet touts till all the hills are rearing, and echoes back returns the shouts, Black Russell isn't sparing. His piercing words like Highland swords divide the joint and marrow. His talk of hell, where devils dwell, our very souls doth harrow, we fight that day. And in the twa hearts of the holy Tulsie we read, what heard let Russell tell his tale, his voice was heard through muir and dale. People who heard Russell speaking confirmed that at open-air communions, his voice might be heard at the distance of a mile. It's an interesting point that when Russell was a minister here, people took their own little chairs or stools with them to the church. Most of them left them there, but there were some old ladies used to carry them home under their cloaks, and they were nicknamed by the youngsters gospel horses. After 1868, the interior of the church had taken on a completely new appearance. There were memorial windows erected. They were put in memory of the ministers of the church and Provost Strang. They were unveiled at a cost of £80 each. The other 20 windows were put in at the expense of private individuals, but the central memorial window, which is behind the pulpit, was erected in memory of William Boyd, the 4th Earl of Kilmarnock. The window cost £100 and was raised by subscription. The Earl was executed in 1746 at the Tower of London for his part in the Jacobite uprising in 1745. He was aged only 42 years. The organ, which was built by Mr. Hunter at a cost of £239, was inaugurated in 1869 and was the first organ introduced by the Church of Scotland in Kilmarnock. There are 3 memorial tablets placed in the walls inside the church. One is to Mary Wilson, who died at sea. Another one is to the donors of this place. And the one on the right-hand side of the pulpit is to the memory of Major William Parker of Asloss. He was the Right Worshipful Master of the Masonic Lodge St John, and he left £1,000 to the poor of Kilmarnock. Robert Burns referred to him in Ye Sons of Old Killie, assembled by Willie to follow the noble vocation. And within this dear mansion may wayward contention, nor withered envy ne'er enter. May secrecy round be the mystical ground, and brotherly love be the centre. Going outside the church now, we move down to the Soulis Monument. The old monument of Soulis Cross appears to have existed as far back as 1609, when Pont wrote his work in Cunningham. There's a lot of controversy surrounding Lord Soulis, but the story goes that he was an English nobleman who was killed in that spot by an arrow shot by one of the Boyds in 1444. The monument was renewed in 1825 when a fluted pillar surmounted by a base was placed in a niche of the wall near the site of the old cross. It is inscribed to the memory of Lord Soulis, AD 1444, erected by subscription AD 1825. The days of old to mind I call. Moving inside now into the burial ground, Godsacre. Buried here are several civic rulers, former provosts, town clerks and treasurers, 3 ministers of the kirk, other ministers, one of whom is the son of the Reverend McKinley, Robert and William Hunter, builders of the kirk, Jean Sampson, who is the granddaughter of Tam Sampson, Thomas Morton of Morton Place. You'll see on the map at the back of your programme some of them detailed. There's also buried William James Tanner, artists. James studied art in Edinburgh under Alexander Naismith. It's probable that he had access to Naismith's pencil sketches, especially the ones of Robert Burns. James Tanner never met Robert Burns in Edinburgh, but only caught glimpses of him in Kilmarnock when James was only a young boy. James was permitted to copy the famous Naismith portrait, and according to experts, he has given it a slightly less feminine appearance. And Tannock's copy has been stated by the Burns family as being the best copy of the likeness of the poet in existence. The Tannock brothers lay in an unmarked grave till 1976, when the Howth Burns Club Kilmarnock erected a memorial plaque on the site of their burial place. But tonight we gather here beside this tombstone to pay tribute to John Wilson. John Wilson was born in 1759, the son of a shopkeeper. The first printing press in Ayrshire was set up in Kilmarnock in 1780 by Peter MacArthur, and it seems likely that John Wilson took over the press and types. Soon after his venture into printing, he was fortunate enough to be visited in the summer of 1786 by Robert Burns, whose desire was to see his verse in gilt black print. The actual work of printing began on the 13th of July, and by 31st of July, the edition of 612 copies were ready for distribution. The book, costing 3 shillings per copy, sold far beyond the list of the 350 advance subscribers. By the 28th of August, there were only 13 copies left. With John Wilson's brother Peter commencing bookselling in Ayr, a flood of work followed the printing of the Kilmarnock edition. John moved his press and types to Ayr in 1790. And John continued his other work in Kilmarnock, and Peter attended to the printing at Ayr, where in 1803 they launched the Ayr Advertiser. As business in Kilmarnock thrived, John Wilson undertook community work, and serving in the town council was elected a baillie of the town. A respected figure in Kilmarnock, he sold his bookseller's business and moved to Ayr in 1810. He died there in 1821 and is buried here beneath the shadow of the High Kirk. In his will, he left an educational endowment for the poor children of Kilmarnock, which was transferred later to the Borough School Board. And now looking back, when Oliphant first spilled the stairs in 1764, An old licht cant, with 3 mile prayers, he gied frae endless store. And Russell wrote, mair orthodox, we proved predestination, nae living Lord for such like folks, nor even yet salvation for them that day. But new Ra Burns is blown a blast, and he's again to day it. He'll back the new lichts to the last, in verse he fair can say it. An unca brawl brews in the kirk, and heresy's been hinted, but Rab's unsheathed his verbal dirk, and faith he's gonna print it in a book this day. John Wilson frae the Star End Close set up his printing presses, and warned, I canna stand a loss, collect names and addresses. Of them who will subscribe to this, there's lots I needna wonder. Say Rab, I'll make you up a list, you'll sell at least 600 too fast this day. Hypocrisy has ta'en the doors with heresy beside her, blind superstition loud implores, for hidebound can't to guide her. It's thanks to Burns and those who strove, with help frae John the printer, to show the church means God is love, and the fear of hell has tint her for many a day.
It was a fairly ordinary looking publication when we think of the highly sophisticated bicentenary one that so many of you have subscribed to. And yet, my friends, it's a pearl beyond price, and I have the privilege of